Parliament, Speaker of Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania and President of IPU, Honorable Paul Christian Makonda, the Arusha Regional Commissioner, Right Honorable 𝒓𝒊𝒈𝒉𝒕, Member of Parliament from Sierra Leone, the President of CPA Africa Region, Right Honorable Catherine Gotani Hara, Member of Parliament from Malawi, Chairperson of CPA Africa and Regional Executive Committee and Speaker of Parliament of Malawi, Right Honorable Jata Tambog, Member of Parliament from the Gambia, Vice President, CPA Africa Region, Right Honorable Arthur Holder, Member of Parliament from Barbados, Acting Chairperson of the Executive Committee of CPA International, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable Members of Parliament from the United Republic of Tanzania, Mr. Stephen Twigg, Secretary General, CPA, Mr. Baraka Idelphonse Leonard, Regional Secretary of CPA and Clerk of the National Assembly of the United Republic of Tanzania, distinguished delegates and invited guests, members of the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, I wish to extend a very warm welcome to all our guests. Karibuni sana. The President had intended to personally officiate the 53rd CPA Africa Regional Conference, but could not be here due to other equally pressing national commitments. And hence, Her Excellency sent me to stand in for her and wishes all of you a memorable stay in Tanzania and a very successful conference. Distinguished delegates, I've been brought to understand that this conference is a platform that brings together parliamentarians from across the Africa region and beyond to foster dialogue, share best practices, and strengthen parliamentary democracy. I do hope that delegates will effectively use this opportunity to do exactly that and connect with peers. I have also been informed that the CPA Africa region also aims at promoting peace, unity, democracy, and good governance, as well as stability in all member states. And in view of that, the choice of the theme for the 53rd conference, which is African parliaments at the forefront of addressing existential global challenges, food insecurity, climate change, and youth employment, is both pertinent and timely. Indeed, food insecurity, climate crisis, and youth unemployment pose serious threats to socio-political and economic stability of the continent, and thus requiring immediate and coordinated action. And therefore, parliaments in Africa, as key actors for promotion of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, have a crucial role to play in tackling the said main global challenges by leveraging their legislative powers, budgetary control, and oversight functions. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, food insecurity stands out as one of the most pressing challenges facing our continent. And despite Africa's vast agricultural potential, millions of our people still go hungry. The continent lags behind in attaining SDG 2 targets on food security and nutrition, as well as the Malabo Agreement on ending hunger and all forms of malnutrition come 2025. It is estimated that the proportion of the population in Africa that is facing both moderate and severe food insecurity stands at 61%, which is more than twice that of the global level, estimated at 29.6%. In this regard, the strategic role of parliaments is to urge and vote for enhanced public investments in agriculture and supportive sectors in terms of budgetary resources for increased supply and access to farm inputs, infrastructure, and services. And they include irrigation infrastructure, feeder roads, farming equipment, access to credit, quality seeds, pesticides, extension services, storage facilities, and access to markets, particularly to rural communities. In other words, parliaments are responsible for enacting legislations that support food security and facilitate investment in the agriculture and allied sectors. In Tanzania, through parliament, various laws have been enacted to address food insecurity in line with the National Agricultural Policy, which aims at enhancing agricultural growth and productivity and ensuring food security. Our priorities include improving access to agricultural inputs, promoting sustainable farming practices, and supporting smallholder farmers to access credit and markets. Tanzania has also implemented a number of agriculture and livestock development initiatives, including what we call in Kiswahili as Kilimo Kwanza, which means agriculture first, and more recently, that we have an initiative called Building a Better Tomorrow. So the Kilimo Kwanza initiative focused on targeted financing of agriculture activities and programs, while Building a Better Tomorrow focuses on job creation for the youth and modernizing agriculture through investment in the requisite infrastructure. Again, it's the rural roads, irrigation, storage, communication facilities, research and extension services. We also established the Tanzania Agricultural Development Bank specifically to extend credit to smallholder and middle-level farmers and investors in agriculture at affordable interest rates. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is another serious threat that is already impacting adversely our continent. As a result, we are increasingly experiencing severe and long-term droughts, crop failures and famine, and similarly, intense and unpredictable rains, flooding, and sea level rise are now recurring phenomena. And although Africa contributes less than 5% of greenhouse gas emissions, which are responsible for global warming, climate change has adversely affected our continent on all fronts, be it economic, social, political, and environmental. In this regard, parliaments and parliamentarians are duty-bound to ensure that concrete measures are taken by governments and other stakeholders to address the climate crisis through implementation of robust mitigation and adaptation measures, including adoption of green technologies. Apart from allocating a commensurate share of budgetary resources for national environmental protection programs, parliaments ought to hasten ratification and implementation of international agreements, notably the Paris Agreement and the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. Parliaments are also expected to oversee implementation of nationally determined contributions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as well as enhancing transparency and accountability of climate action and reporting. In addition, parliaments ought to be at the forefront of raising the profile of the climate change agenda through quality debates so as to promote a better understanding of the need to take prompt action to prevent an environment catastrophe at national and global level. Like many other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Tanzania too faces significant threats from climate change. In response, the Parliament of Tanzania enacted the Environmental Management Act and the Water Resources Management Act, which include provisions for mitigating climate change impacts through reforestation programs, conservation of water resources, and promotion of renewable energy sources. The National Environment Management Council was also established through an Act of Parliament to undertake environmental enforcement, compliance, review and monitoring of environmental impacts, research, as well as raising awareness. The Parliament also has a standing committee on water and environment, which provides oversight function on water resources management and environmental issues. And in doing so, Parliament collaborates with other stakeholders to shape people's perceptions on climate change and impart knowledge nationally as well as at the constituent level. Furthermore, Parliament has been instrumental in advocating for interventions to minimize adverse impacts of climate change on food security, like pushing for smart agriculture and avoidance of conflict over land and water resources, carbon trade to incentivize protection of forests, as well as championing the transition from the use of charcoal and firewood for cooking to clean energy, an agenda that is championed Africa-wide by Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Similarly, parliamentarians are at the forefront of the tree planting campaigns, street cleaning in urban and beach areas, as well as distribution of gas cylinders to the local communities in their constituencies. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, with regard to youth employment, it is well known that Africa is now the world's youngest continent, with 70% of sub-Saharan Africa under the age of 70, and the median age is only 19. This youthful profile creates a potential for economic growth when the share of the working age population exceeds the non-working age population. And in Maasai language, we call this the demographic dividend. However, it is estimated that 10 to 12 million young people enter the labor market each year, but only 3 million are absorbed, leaving the majority of the youth either unemployed or forced to settle for low-paid and low-productive jobs to make ends meet. The prevailing underemployment and lack of employment prospects for the youth in African countries are driving the young people to migrate to urban centers or overseas, even in very dangerous circumstances. As a result of unemployment frustrations, the youth have become prone to extremism, propaganda, and even joining political riots. Under the above circumstances, parliaments are duty-bound to voice the plight of the youth, putting forward practical interventions required, and advise the executive to devise youth employment programs and to see to it that they are reasonably funded through the national budget and cooperation with other partners. As parliaments exercise their legislative and oversight functions, they need to work with governments to promote employment policies and programs and innovative financing for youth entrepreneurial programs. Parliaments should also advocate for education and training reforms to facilitate school-to-work transition, prevent skills mismatches, side by side with the special programs, and dedicated funding for projects that are run by youth groups and those with disabilities, but also ensure that young people receive equal treatment in the job market. For example, here in Tanzania, each local government authority is required by law to set aside 10% of revenue from own sources to fund projects run by youth groups as well as those run by women and people with disability. Distinguished delegates, since agriculture is the main employer in Tanzania, absorbing about 75% of the population, we have deliberately tripled the agricultural budget over the past 3 years. The government has also set up a startup capital fund under the Building a Better Tomorrow program to facilitate access to land, acquisition of agro inputs, and modern technology. The program has also entailed establishment of a digital platform for registration of farmers and posting of inputs and market information. The government has also leveraged on cooperation with multilateral companies and partnerships with the private sector to attract foreign direct investment in the agricultural sector. And some of the areas that are apparently attractive to our young people include horticulture, livestock fattening, fish farming, agri-tech, e-commerce, logistics, and marketing of farm produce using ICT. Distinguished delegates, in winding up, I would like to stress that addressing the global challenges of food insecurity, climate crisis, and youth unemployment requires collective action of all stakeholders. Importantly, it also requires sustained peace in Africa. And in this regard, African parliaments are uniquely positioned to spearhead this drive through effective and legislation and oversight. Let us seize the opportunity offered by this conference to exchange best practices and country experiences on tackling these global challenges more effectively, alongside greater resolve to end conflicts and silence the guns in Africa. Peace is imperative for tackling all burning global challenges. Together, we can overcome them and build a better Africa for future generations, as envisaged in the 2063 agenda, the Africa we want. With these remarks, it is now my singular honor and privilege to declare the 53rd CPA Africa Regional Conference officially opened. God bless CPA Africa region. I thank you.
Sawa sawa, basi mtazamaji wa TBC1 hapo umeweza kumsikia vema kabisa. Basi mgeni rasmi akifungua rasmi basi mkutano huu hapa. Kusikia kwa uzuri kabisa, lakini basi kubwa ni kile ambacho ameweza kukizungumza hapa katika mkutano huu, akisisitiza yale makubwa ya muhimu ambayo yatakwenda kujadiliwa takriban wiki nzima hapa katika mkutano huu, lakini yote basi yakiwa yenye lengo la kujenga na kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba mustakabali wa maisha ya wale wananchi wanachama wa jumuiya hii yanaendelea kuweza kupewa kipaumbele.